Well, I have a very, very special show right now for you. Very different than the normal show. I mean, yes, I'll be talking about Tesla. That'll be the same. And I'll be talking about it in terms of only the one subject for the entire show, and that is the rollout in Austin in a couple of weeks or so. And there's three pieces to this. And believe it or not, I'm going to be using two resources that I generally speaking would never use, and in fact was disinclined to use as I began to read each article, one from Forbes and one from Business Insider. That I don't usually trust the sources, feel that they're very anti-Elon Musk, very anti-Tesla. And yet, as I read through them, and even though, yes, they were certainly both, I think, trying to be dismissive of the RoboTaxi and the plans that are coming up, they raised a lot of kind of good issues and things that maybe everybody's not thinking about. And I thought, let me do a reaction video to both of those stories. Then, as I was preparing to do the video, I listened to the James Douma conversation that he had with Farzad on his channel yesterday. And James Douma added, as he always does, a huge amount of information, things I think that you'll find that you've never thought of at all, not even come close to thinking of in the past, but also his impressions about the rollout and how he thinks it's going to go. And I think we can all agree that James Douma probably has a better total amount of understanding of how all the software was put together in the past and currently, and also has driven thousands and thousands of miles of FSD. So anyway, those are the three pieces. We'll start with the two articles and then go on to what James Douma had to say. I think you're going to find a lot of very interesting information here, and I think encouraging because, generally speaking, I try to be encouraging. So let's go ahead and take a look. We'll start with the Business Insider article. Tesla's RoboTaxi debut into Austin will be invite only and have a lot of teleoperators. This is according to Morgan Stanley's Adam Jonas. Well, let's start there for just a minute. I don't know where Morgan Stanley's Adam Jonas got the idea that there's going to be teleoperators. I feel as if we've been told there won't be. And then, of course, there's the definition of what exactly is a teleoperator. So we'll get into that a little more as we go along here. During a recent visit to Tesla's Palo Alto office, the analyst got details of what the EV company's robotaxi launch will look like. He says, he's quoted as saying, Austin's a go, but the fleet size will be low. I don't know if he's trying to be a poet there. Jonas wrote in a note published Friday, think 10 to 20 cars. Tesla said in their April 22 earnings call that the pilot launch will have a limited fleet. In fact, they talked then in terms of 10 to 20 cars. The analyst also wrote that the robotaxis will operate only on public roads and that the service will be invite only, and that there will be many teleoperators on hand. So now we get back to this teleoperator. Let's see, he goes on to say, quote, public roads, invite only, plenty of teleops to ensure safety levels. We can't screw up, Jonas wrote, but still waiting for the actual date. So again, he went to this meeting and this is what he heard, or this is what he's reporting on what he's heard. So we got to take it that he was hearing this from leadership at Tesla. In the context of robotaxis, teleoperators often mean that a remote employee can take over some level of control of the vehicle, typically when the autonomous driver gets stuck. Now, that would be the kind of teleoperator that I would be thinking that we're talking about, because I believe what we've heard from Tesla is that the teleoperator could in no way ever be able to take over the actual driving of the vehicle, that the latency would be too low. We'll talk about that in a section. Second, he says that's different from companies like Waymo or Zoox, which handle tricky driving scenarios. While both companies have remote human workers on hand, an employee can never take control of the vehicle's steering or the pedals. Now, I've been paying attention to Waymo's website for some time now. I've looked up what they've had to say. They've changed the website recently, but 6 or 7 months ago, I think they were able to take over control of the car based on what I was reading. And it looked like they might have even had one-to-one in terms of teleoperators to the vehicles. Now, he goes on to say that when a vehicle gets stuck, the remote workers can either suggest a path to take or provide more information regarding the vehicle's environment so that the autonomous driver can figure out how to get out of the situation. So they would basically be working with the computer itself, the autonomous driver, if you will, the compute. They'd be working with that in order to help the equipment, the vehicle, get out of trouble. One example Waymo published on YouTube included a scenario when an emergency vehicle blocked the RoboTaxi's path. A remote worker will answer a question such as, is the emergency vehicle blocking all indicated lanes? This will provide more environmental context for the autonomous driver to make a decision. So then it's unclear how much control Tesla's teleoperators will have over the robotaxis for the Austin debut. Business Insider's Grace Kay previously reported that there had been discussion around using remote operators as safety drivers for the launch, citing two people familiar with the matter. Now, we had heard from some people speculating, I think more than anything, that there might even be a physical driver in the first vehicles on the first day or so, or in some of the vehicles. I think that's likely untrue. A job listing from Tesla for a software engineer on the teleoperation team says that as the company iterates on the AI that powers the cars and robots, it will need the ability to access and control them remotely. The autonomous driving community is debating how safe these teleoperations are for the robotaxi service. While there's an industry-wide consensus on the need for human operators to monitor robotaxis and help with rare edge cases, some industry experts argue that a vehicle that can be fully remotely controlled has safety pitfalls. Ex-Waymo CEO John Krafcik, who is highly skeptical of Tesla's robotaxi proposition, previously told Business Insider that there are safety risks to teleoperations. One study by a team of researchers at Coventry University Center for Future Transport and Cities found that even a 300 to 500 millisecond latency, or around half a second, can challenge a teleoperator's ability to control the vehicle even at slow speeds. I'd really love to hear from somebody from Tesla, etc., whether possibly using the Starlink might reduce that latency. Jonas and a Tesla spokesperson didn't respond for a request for comment. Tesla's highly anticipated robotaxi launch has seen a lot of delays. CEO Elon Musk has said several times that full autonomy and robotaxis were around the corner, only for him to miss his own deadline. Yeah, we know about that. I'm not going to cover the examples. They end the story by saying, quoting Elon, "I always bite off more than I can chew," he wrote on an X post in 2023, "then sit there with puffed out cheeks like a squirrel that ate too much." All right. So that was Business Insider's article. Very to the point, good ideas raised in terms of what is the remote driver, what does that look like, how many capabilities would that remote driver have? Forbes then says this, a little longer, more detailed article. At a recent meeting with Tesla investors, a report from Morgan Stanley analyst Adam Jonas stated that robotaxis will be, etc. We got all that. Elon Musk previously stated repeatedly that the vehicles in the robotaxi launch will be unsupervised. It seems likely that they will be remotely supervised, however, and sometimes remotely driven. That would make Tesla's demonstration much less impressive than has been discussed. There is rising speculation about whether Tesla can deliver a real service as promised by Musk in June. There have been no sightings of Teslas operating in Austin with no human inside. As an example, consider Waymo's launch time in Chandler, Arizona. The first 5 rides for the public with safety driver were April 2017. The first operations with no human on board, no passengers, was 6 months later in November. First rides for the public with no driver on board were in October of 2023, years later. Tesla is less cautious than Waymo, but it would be bold to do in less than a month what took Waymo 3 years of testing. It's not a matter of technological capability. It's the harsh reality that testing and self-certification take work and lots of time. Well, somehow this article fails to take into consideration all of the self-driving that's been happening up in Northern California, where they've been taking the employees to work, et cetera, for some time now with a safety operator in the chair. That's absolutely true. Both Cruise and Waymo tested extensively with safety drivers, and Tesla FSD has been used even more extensively by Tesla owners, like by billions of miles. Even so, both Waymo and Cruise discovered quite a number of problems after they finally removed that safety driver. This shouldn't be because of the final stages of safety driver testing. The safety driver should be barely touching the controls in anticipation of the time when there'd be nobody there. This is what I've said over and over and over again on this channel, that these employees that are hired specifically to be these safety drivers who are physically in the car are trained to not take over unless it's absolutely 100% to avoid an accident. But they do. Now, I don't know how they know this, but they do. And not only do they resolve an immediate problem, not only does that resolve an immediate problem, they also preempt any problems that would have followed. A particularly common example were problems with emergency crews and unusual road situations. Encountering a fire truck, the safety driver would take the wheel and get the vehicle out of there. The software sometimes didn't. Again, no idea how they know that this is true. Maybe this is true for Waymo. Maybe it's been true for others, but I don't think they have this information from Tesla. To help, I believe all teams, though they don't talk about it, began no safety driver operations with constant remote monitoring. The remote monitors can't drive the vehicle with a remote wheel, but they can hit a virtual emergency stop button and give strategic advice to help the vehicle decide what to do in a strange or dangerous situation. The vehicle then continues to do the driving, but with a strategic plan set by the human. This is the same thing that was suggested by Business Insider. Aurora Trucking, in their recent launch, which is a trucking company that has a full self-driving situation, and I believe at this point with no safety drivers, but in a very limited situation, very limited highway situation, was keeping a human in the back of the truck cab, as well as having the remote monitors. Due to the unease of their partner, Pekar, they will be moving this person to the front seat now. Aurora did not respond to questions by press time at the exact role of this person. There are suggestions that Tesla plans to do more than just remote advice and do a mixture of remote advice and remote driving. Several companies have built remote driving systems. One, the European company 𝐒𝐦𝐧𝐝𝐚𝐲, operates a remotely driven car delivery service in Las Vegas today. And we also have this all over China, as we've reported many, many times on this channel with Brian Wang doing that reporting. Because connectivity cannot be 100% guaranteed, remote driving systems require a car that is capable of basic driving when the connection fails or the latency gets too high. If a problem persists, they are forced to pull over, as long-term and strategic actions depend on that human to be helping out. That it will be invite only by Tesla in the beginning days is obvious. With only 10 to 20 cars, there will be very many curious that the invite only is obvious. Now, I've said this now for at least 2 or 3 weeks, that I believe that they would need a systematic way to deal with the crowds, and they would need to let us know in advance how it's going to work so that they don't have thousands of people piling into Austin wanting to have a drive. There will be very many curious to take a ride, and demand must be throttled. It is unknown if those who will ride will need to do an NDA, as was the case with early riders of other services. On the other hand, in blue voting Austin, there may be a resistance to Elon Musk. Yes, well, we've talked about this as well. I wouldn't be at all surprised if there turns out to be some kind of demonstrations. Tesla safety rate. Elon Musk's claim during the earnings call that Tesla test vehicles in Austin were needing only one intervention every 10,000 miles raised some eyebrows. Tesla's not before released data on FSD's safety performance, but Tesla drivers who collect data on their own impression of how often a critical intervention is needed have suggested the number is once every 400 miles, and that this has plateaued of late. Now, again, if you follow the channel, you know I've done extensive conversations about this. The difference between an intervention, even a critical intervention, and an actual accident is orders of magnitude different. Unfortunately, the definition of intervention is very broad, according to this article, which is why the mandated intervention reports in California, which Tesla has never submitted, are of low value. some teams will rerun every intervention in simulation to decide if an eventual crash would have taken place. I believe that this is what Tesla's been doing, and I've been saying that for 6-8 months. The private Tesla owners can only go on their intuition of what would have happened if they had not grabbed the wheel. Even so, a jump from 400 miles to 10,000 miles is a very large jump. Some jump is expected when you narrow the service area to just a small set of streets in one town, and when you put extra work into training and fixing problems for that area. But even so, it's still big. Of course, we've now seen Tesla vehicles in Australia with right-hand drive. We've seen them in Paris going into the largest roundabout in the world at the Arc de Triomphe, and we have also seen the situations in China, hundreds and dozens at least, maybe hundreds of videos in China on completely unfamiliar situations that have only been helped by sim to real. By the way, sim to real, simulation to real, which is a big deal right now. Everybody talking about it. Some have speculated that Musk is not telling the truth, but there are special standards of truth when you make statements about facts in the present, when you make statements of fact about the present in an earnings call, but statements about the future can be much less accurate. As large a jump as it is, it's not nearly enough to reach Musk's stated goal of being considered safer than humans. Human drivers have an accident rate that's reported to insurance about the accidents that are only reported to insurance is about 250,000 miles, and to police every 500,000 miles. It's many times longer between airbag deployments and on freeways, which is the only number that Tesla reports for autopilot every quarter, which is 10 times better than human drivers. It's in the range of once every 8 million, I believe. That numbers might be slightly off. Musk has stated he's betting the company on RoboTaxi and Optimus. Tesla stock, which is hit hard after Doge, has been bouncing back, particularly in anticipation of the RoboTaxi launch. So they're agreeing with me that this run-up right now is all about the launch. After promising that robotaxis will be unsupervised, Tesla will probably state that they only meant that there will be no in-car supervision, so Tesla fans may not be disappointed. By the way, I think everybody believes that there will be a remote operator if it's only similar to the Cadillac situation where a person could be talked through whatever's going on. May not be able to do anything, may not be able to interact with the computer or be able to interact with the car in any way, shape, or form. Maybe the best they can do is say, hey, passenger, go ahead and exit the vehicle, or don't stay in the vehicle. The car is thinking it'll be moving in a minute. If there's a lot of remote driving, however, that will be a letdown because it's not self-driving and not a product that really scales. There is some economic benefit to remote-driven taxis since it doesn't need a human to wait during downtime like Uber does, though Uber doesn't directly pay drivers during the downtime. But it's not the revolution Tesla is promising, at least not for now. Tesla has a history with this. The Optimus demo in October 2024 was teleoperated. Tesla has not advertised for developers to make remote driving systems. So the operation of the Optimus in the demo in October was not a disappointment at all, because nobody ever said there was even going to be any Optimus at that show. And so the fact that there were Optimi at all at the show doing drinks and talking to the people there, nobody was saying, they're remote operated? I mean, no, there was no letdown, okay? There's a big risk to Tesla if they deploy before they are ready. Two robotaxi teams, Cruise and Uber ATG, had severe encounters with pedestrians. Both teams and one pedestrian are now dead. The penalty for early mistakes is extreme. They need to launch something to avoid continuing their long streak of mistakes, but what they do launch matters a lot. Okay, now we'll get on to what James Douma had to say. Again, he was on Farzad's show yesterday. Many important insights that I want to share with you. Number one, he says that he believes that the robotaxi will happen, and it will happen timely. He says he doesn't particularly care whether it's June 1 or July 15th or sometime in between, but he believes it'll be, in June probably, and could it slip to July? It might, and it wouldn't really bother him one way or the other. But he says based on his own drives from LA to Portland and back, and to Austin and back from Los Angeles, plus also driving around in LA traffic, the version 14, that is the unsupervised, we're calling that the unsupervised version, is very likely, this is according to James Douma, is very likely to to make this ready to go, and the version 14 will do just fine. He's very confident based on version 13.2.9. I think that's right. So many numbers. I think it's the 13.2.9, the version that everybody's got right now. If you have hardware for, based on his driving of that version, he believes that it's ready to go. Number two, he also says that the rollout in 2025, 2026, and 2027 might happen at different speeds than any of us expect, even that Elon expects, but that it will be in the millions by 2027. He feels very confident that there'll be millions of robotaxis on the road between fleet and the Airbnb type. He believes that maybe the ramp on the actual the Cybercab, he thinks that ramp might be slower, might not, but he believes that those initial Cybercabs will all be for the fleet at least in the beginning times, but maybe later on, maybe not. For Zod, he was thinking maybe that there would be a time when Tesla would just say, you know what, we don't want to be in the fleet business any longer. It's just too much trouble. I don't think there's a chance of that. When you look at the difference between what Tesla earns from the fleet and what they earn from the Airbnb, I think it will always be a very large fleet run by Tesla. Number three, he believes that we will get to 25 million robotaxis by 2030. 25 million by 2030. You put the numbers to that, it's a huge, huge deal. Number four, and oh, by the way, he also believes that a lot of that will be folks renting it or allowing their cars to be used as robotaxis. Number four, and maybe the most counterintuitive idea of all. I had no idea about this. Maybe you did. Let me know in the comments. He says that each update to FSD in your car has an envelope of parameters within which it can operate, and that Tesla can tweak those without an update. So you might see improvements in your current version, or you actually might see some aspects dialed back. In other words, Tesla sends out the version, and some aspects are dialed back to a lower level than their potential. And then as they see how the car is doing with the various groups, the employees, and then the early adopters, et cetera, as they see how it's working, they can dial it up and become more aggressive. Or they might see something that indicates that there's too many errors in some aspects of the capability, and they would be able to reduce the capability of that version permanently or for a time. And I had no idea that they could do this. So if you're seeing, you're driving and you're going, it seems like it's even better than it was yesterday, that is very possibly true. That blew my mind. I had no idea about that. And then finally, number five, the biggest improvement from version 11 to version 13 is the amount of planning, the amount of time into the future that the computer is planning. It isn't seeing any more than it did before. It isn't seeing any further than it did before. It isn't analyzing things better. What it's doing is it is looking further out in the future to make a plan for merging lanes if it's a difficult merge, or getting off the freeway. I've noticed, it gets over into the exit lane much sooner than it used to. So it's the planning that has had the big improvement, which is why basically it's ready to go. And that's what we're going to see in June. Let me know your comments about all this. Do you think that there's going to be, do you agree with me that there will be some kind of remote drivers, and it may only be one for 10 cars or one for 5 cars or even one for all 20, who knows? And what do you think they will be capable of doing? Do you think that they will be able to actively drive the car remotely? Do you think they'll only be able to, as mentioned in one of the articles up here, only be able to talk to the computer and say, this is what we'd recommend that you do in terms of the next action, and then the computer takes over and does all the work? What do you think about all that? Let me know. What do you think about these two articles? Do you think they were fair and balanced? I thought not bad for Forbes and Business Insider. And then what do you think about what James Douma had to say? Obviously, he is the brightest bulb on the planet, in our planet, in our community, and knows more about it than any of us. So I thought that was valuable to bring to you. Okay, that's all for now. That's all I've got, but there will be the regular show later on today, the Monday morning show, which is on Sunday night, where we talk about what's coming up next week, and we talk about any other Tesla news that happened since yesterday afternoon. And then later at 7:45, we've taken all three parts of that Cern Basher story that we did it in three parts to begin with. We've spliced it all together, and if you only saw one, or if you didn't see any of it, or if you want to watch it again, that'll be put together as just one video, roughly an hour and 20 minutes. If you'd like to really learn all about Cern Basher, he's had quite the interesting life. So I'd encourage you to watch that as well at 7:45 California time tonight. And that is all I have for you right now. Please like, subscribe, notify, and join Patreon. It is Randy Kirk. It's been great talking to you.